What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabril, and I'm with
Steve. How you guys doing?
And for y'all who don't know, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming. Now, Steve, we like to start with what we've been playing. What have you been playing?
All right, so as we discussed, I think we discussed last week, wrapped up Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yep. Spoiler cast coming soon.
But I'll save all those thoughts for spoiler cast. So, obviously, before I jumped into another big game, because Final Fantasy took a lot out of me, I've been kind of dabbling everything. I went into Days Gone, started doing a couple side missions, trying to pop some trophies. I've been playing the My Heroes Academia One's Justice 2 game.
That's the one you did the video on, right?
Yeah, I did the video. It's the newest one. Again, just kind of going in there, cleaning up trophies. I actually really enjoy that game. It's kind of really... I kind of put like a podcast on or something else on, and I kind of just fight. It's an anime fighter, so I don't have to pay attention too much. Still grind out my little bit of Animal Crossing. The main game I've been playing to kind of just clean my palette, though, which I know is a weird sense. I've been playing Super Mario World, which I'm also playing for a video I'm going to be doing soon. But I just, that's my favorite game of all time. So that game is just still fantastic. I'm just trucking through it, though.
There was an update recently, wasn't there?
For
Mario?
No, not Mario Maker. Not Mario Maker.
Oh, I'm thinking Mario Maker. You said Mario
World. Super Mario World.
Mario World. Yeah. Okay.
No. Yeah. No, yeah. I did dabble in the Mario Maker stuff, and I might have a video coming out on that, but I don't know.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Super Mario World, like
gotcha.
SNES, which is besides the fact that I'm playing it on the Switch, the online membership thing.
Yep, with save states.
The game. So. Yeah, with save states and stuff like that. I play mostly handheld, so that Joy-Con is just it's not good. It's like a lot of my deaths aren't because of that. It's just because there's no D-pad and like the buttons are weird. Like the running, the twirl button and the jump button are all awkwardly placed. When I'm playing on the Pro Controller, it's no problem. But yeah, playing on the Joy-Con's a little rough. But yeah, that game's still amazing. That's my favorite Mario game and my favorite game of all time. So that's all I've really been playing. Maybe a few other little light things, a little bit of still Phantasy Star Online.
Okay.
And just a little dabbling. Some of the Sega Genesis classics I've been playing. But that's all I've been up to. What have you been playing?
So, besides my Animal Crossing daily maintenance, this new update with Animal Crossing I'm actually kind of enjoying because it came at the perfect time for me. I kind of did pretty much everything I wanted to do in my town. I have an exorbitant amount of money. I have 10 mil in the bank right now, just from selling turnips and stuff like that. So at this point, I've kind of did everything I wanted to do. I got a whole bunch of furniture. I got a whole bunch of nice outfits. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of hit a natural point in every Animal Crossing where I'm like, all right, I did everything I want to do. I'm done. I move on. But this update came and they introduced something that I literally remember saying when this game came out that I wanted, which was the introduction of art into the museum. I'm getting really into art in real life, so them integrating that into the game is just bought them a whole 10, 15 more hours with me for sure. So I've been playing that. That's kind of my daily maintenance. And then my main two games that I've been playing have been Final Fantasy VII, the original one. I'm still banging that one out. I'm actually fairly deep into it at this point. I think I'm at the Golden Saucer at this point. I think I'm past the jail, the prison part. So, okay. Yeah, I'm pretty deep into the game. I'm probably at, near the halfway point at this time. It's really interesting, the version that they put on the new consoles, because it has, all these, built-in cheats that I don't really utilize other than, there's, the 3x speed one, which I love that. Because this game, it's slower, for sure, especially, navigation. It's a pretty slow game, so introducing that kind of, 3x speed thing is great. There is the mechanic with no random encounters, which I don't use that often because obviously random encounters keep your level where it needs to be, judging by where you are in the game. However, when you have to backtrack for any reason, getting caught up in random encounters, especially with low-level enemies, is literally just a time sink. So that's a good opportunity to use that. And then they have another one that I don't use, but it's basically God mode that maxes out your ATP gauge so you can do limit breaks constantly. And also it auto-heals you after every time you get hurt. So it's an OP God mode that I haven't had to use yet, but I suppose if I ever hit a boss that I cannot get past for whatever reason, I guess I'll use it. But I think that's an interesting way to keep the progression going, that if you just want to experience the Final Fantasy stories, you could do it. in essentially like 10 to 12 hours front to back, because if you put that 3 times speed and God mode thing in, there's literally nothing stopping you. You could just run through that game. So that's the first one. And then I bought another game yesterday that I've been meaning to play pretty much since 2019, Blasphemous. You remember I mentioned that when that was coming out?
Yeah, I do remember that.
So I picked that up yesterday. I'm about an hour and a half to 2 hours in, and I love it. That game is awesome. Like, for real. I cannot believe I waited so long to get it. It's challenging. It's a tough game. They are not playing with you. For y'all who don't know, the game opens up very similarly to kind of a Neo Bloodborne type situation, where they throw some hard enemies, specifically a boss. That's the first enemy you encounter as a boss battle. So immediately they let you know what you're in for, pretty much. And for y'all who have never played, it's similar to, imagine kind of like a Castlevania, with some of the visual sensibilities in terms of like the pixel art of like a Dead Cells and some of the gameplay of a Dead Cells, but then with some of the dark Catholic imagery that you see in like Victorian England and kind of like the Baroque art of like Spain, and it's horrifying. Like, the game is terrifying.
Yeah.
But no, it's a really, really solid game. It was on sale for like $15. It still might be there. So if you're interested in looking for like kind of like a challenging action platformer, I highly recommend it. It's really good.
Are you playing it on Switch?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I had to get on Switch so I can just have that versatility of playing it in bed or, docked. I did run into a bug, though, and I don't know if that is a Switch exclusive thing. I hope that gets addressed at some point, but considering how long the game has been out, I guess it's probably not going to. When I'm transitioning from one area to another, it loads lightly in between like screens and rooms, but they're pretty quick load screens, so it's not something that's super jarring or anything like that. It's similar to like something you would experience in like a Symphony of the Night or something like that.
Yeah.
But I have noticed that if you press start or like try to load up the map while that loading screen has happened, it just black screens and freezes there. And normally with some games that like autosave and stuff like that, that's not that big of a deal. You reboot the game, you keep going. But with a game like this or a game like Castlevania, that it's all built upon like chugging along and just trying to get to that next save area. Like, I've literally gone in one direction 45 minutes just trying to get to that save point, and then for it to black screen on me and all that progress is lost is like bad. So I'm hoping that that is not something that repeats multiple times through the game. But other than that, I think it's a pretty awesome game, super worth the money, and I'm really enjoying it. So that's gonna give me a lot of playtime out of my Switch lately.
All right, yeah, sounds good. I've been meaning to get it. I've seen it on sale a couple times, and I just keep not playing it because I'm like, ugh. Because I know, not ugh, that I'm disgusted. I love the aesthetic of it. I remember seeing that trailer when you sent it to me a couple months ago, and I was super excited. I just haven't had the time because I know it is very Dark Souls, Bloodborne kind of style with the super hard like difficulty. I just haven't had a chance to really get into it, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so highly recommend it. So I guess we could jump into the stories at this point. Now, you guys know I always like to give the caveat before I get into the story. This is a rumor. So by the time you watch this, you might have different information. This might be disproven. But as of right now, on Sunday, this is a rumor that's kind of circulating. So according to Video Game Chronicle, Horizon Zero Dawn 2 has started development soon after the first game's successful release. The sources have said. Initially, the game was planned for a PS4 release. However, it is thought that development has now shifted to the Sony's next generation console, the PS5. It's rumored to have a larger game world and more freedom to explore than its predecessor. People with knowledge of the game have indicated the inclusion of some kind of co-op feature, although it's not clear that if this is delivered through the main story or kind of like a separate mode. So obviously with the success of Horizon and Sony wanting new IPs to invest into for the future, this was kind of a given. We're no doubt going to get it. I also saw a secondary rumor and another story that there's rumors that Horizon's actually supposed to be ultimately a trilogy. So that's kind of circulating. So Steve, what do you think about the possibility of a Horizon 2?
So I think it's obvious that Horizon 2 is coming. I remember those leaked like job listings and stuff like that, and with the success that was Horizon, it's true. Obviously, whether it's called, it's not going to be called. I doubt it's going to be just called. I don't know what they would call it, but obviously there is a sequel coming.
Horizon One Dawn.
Zero Dawn. They go to One Dawn. I don't know what they're going to call it. It's obviously that they are preparing for this. That's why they're bringing this to PC, because that's going to, and it's obviously going to be a PS5 game because they wouldn't. I don't think there's any reason to put it on PC if it wasn't coming to the new system, because they're going to use it to sell some hardware, obviously. I expect nothing but another fantastic game. This is a game I've been waiting to kind of replay, and I might be able to do it soon once everything's kind of cleared up. I don't know what the co-op feature would necessarily be, or if it's needed. If it's a single-player campaign, which is to the standards that the first one had, fantastic, great, and there's an added co-op mechanic, that's cool. You know, the more the better. I just don't want it to be a tacked-on kind of multiplayer where just no one's gonna play it. I just don't know how you really do. What, are you gonna go hunting with someone, or create your own character and you kind of, like, I don't know, Red Dead Redemption 2? So that I don't know. I'm sure they will probably pull it off really well. I think pretty much all the rumor that's come out this week, obviously with it being development, I think it probably started development probably even before the first one launched, because the few stories and recordings and like reports is that people, Sony really knew they had a big fantastic game on here. Like, I have a friend who never plays on PlayStation, and he would went track down a PlayStation just to play Horizon, and I was like, and I've always kept my eye on it because it's a first party title, but I didn't think it was gonna be like that great blockbuster game. So I'm excited to see what they have for it. I'm excited to see the story. I wonder if they're gonna continue the story from the first one, or if they're gonna go just completely out of the way, disconnected kind of universe type thing. Because they have a lot of options. That's the thing. They have so many options where timeline they want to go, character they want to go, prequel, not prequel, what characters can return technically, depending what time and they set everything in. But I mean, I'm excited. The other little rumor that it's probably going to be set for a trilogy. I mean, every game pretty much that ever created is usually planned for sequels and trilogy because they hope for it to be successful.
Especially from Sony.
Yeah, especially from Sony. I mean, what's the last time except probably The Last of Us, I don't see any other one not getting tons of sequels. As long as the quality's good, the fan base is happy, and the creators are behind it, I don't see why you wouldn't want to make sequels. I don't think I'm sure that's probably come up, but they're probably all focused on making Horizon 2 a great game instead of trying to make it as another platform to launch a third game. Because then you get into territory of are you going to cut stuff out of this game to not, to be able to up yourself in the future? But I mean, I'm excited. More Horizon's great. And I'm excited to see what they have because they've been quiet since the launch of it, really since the launch of the DLC.
Yeah, the detail that interests me the most out of this rumored story is the idea of them kind of exploring a larger game world for this one, because that kind of rang a little strange to me because I played through Horizon. I also played through the Frozen Wilds expansion, which was massive in its own regard, and it opened up a whole nother section of the map. The size of the map was already astronomically huge. So at no point was I was just what this game needs to be even bigger. Mm-hmm. Now, that's certainly not something I'm opposed to at all, and I think there's a lot of benefits that they can have from there in terms of diversity of environment is something that I'm particularly interested in. Bigger fields doesn't interest me, but fields, deserts, volcanoes, all different types of stuff. That's something I thought that Breath of the Wild, for example, did very well. It's just diversity of environment. That is something that excites me. The thing is, as I play more games, larger worlds become less appealing to me, and more dense, engaging worlds become more appealing to me. So if they're able to increase that kind of action density and in terms of different environmental challenges and stuff that you can engage with, that is something that really interests me. But if they just make it bigger, especially once you enter in the modern game sphere, you got fast travel and in different waypoints and stuff like that. You're not running across the stuff, so they can make the game as large as possible. But if you're not really going by foot through a lot of places, it's not something that ultimately I think the player really realizes that much, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm curious to see the direction they go in. Yeah, there was no doubt that this was going to get a sequel, and I'm excited to see. I'm also excited to see, and we only have one entry so far, so we don't know the direction they're going to take narratively. Is this going to be a franchise that, for example, follows Aloy's story? Or is this a franchise that's going to track the story of that world, Horizon as a world, and Halo is but Aloy is but a cog in that wheel. of this massive struggle going on of humanity versus these machines, and the interrelated nature of like, you know, nature and machine and future and past and what are our place, and all the different narrative themes they play around with. I'm curious to see if that's more the direction, that's the focal point of the, and then Aloy is but a part of it, and then Horizon 2 focuses on a different protagonist, but maybe Aloy plays some kind of supplementary role in there. So I'm curious to see how that plays out, but nonetheless, I mean, I'm there. More Sony exclusives, you know, first party exclusives, they're on an amazing roll right now, so there was no doubt that they were going to continue, you know, that trajectory, and it would be amazing if they were able to get this out for a PS5 launch title. I think that is the kind of heat that they would need to really push this new console. But obviously, I mean, the development cycle, I always started it. It could have started before the first one came out, but I've always started it after Frozen Wilds was released. Mm-hmm. Frozen Wilds, I can't remember exactly, but I believe it was the tail end of 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Like the latter part of 2017.
Yeah, it was almost, yeah, I believe so.
So that tells me full-scale development perhaps maybe started in early or late 2017, early 2018. A 2-year dev cycle for an ambitious sequel on a next-gen console seems a little tight for me. So I don't think we see this game any sooner than, you know, quarter 2 2021, in my opinion. When do you think this would possibly come out, if you had to guess?
Yeah, I, at the earliest, yeah, I probably would say, yeah, summer 20... No, at the earliest, I'd probably say fall 2021.
Okay.
Because you do have to remember that, I don't know how many of the team went over there, but these guys also worked on Death Stranding. You know, Death Stranding was able to crank out super fast because right, it's all on their engine, right? The Decima?
Yes, this is their engine. And they got Killzone, too.
And they got, you know, and they have Killzone. So you got to realize, I don't know how much of the team went over there to help crank out Death Stranding as fast as it did. So you're probably looking earliest 2021 fall game, because they're not going to just rush it, as much as the engine is already there. Character models, adventures, voice acting, they do all the mocap and all that stuff. All that takes time, especially now in this weird, you know, lockup, you know, social distancing thing. Mocap and all that kind of stuff can't be done right now. You can get some of the voice acting done for certain people, but we don't know all the stuff that's kind of hidden back there, which is why it's smart for them to not announce it anytime soon until they have a more solid game plan. But I wouldn't expect it any sooner than that, fall 2021.
Yeah, because sequels are tricky, because you have a new IP, but the sequel can be completely transformative and incredibly ambitious, or kind of more of a good thing. Mm-hmm. And that is ultimately what I think will make or break this game in terms of like the dev cycle. They have a lot of assets. They have a world built. I don't know if the sequel is going to be so transformative to the point where like they need a whole another 3 to 4 year dev cycle, or are they just going to use a lot of the infrastructure? Maybe what we'll see with like Spider-Man, for example, where they take the city, they introduce new things to do, new enemies, new suits. So it's just more of a good thing that we already liked. So yeah. Again, I don't know if this occupies the same map in some kind of reskinned manner, then yeah, the dev cycle can be cut down a lot. But I just don't know if a Sony first-party game gets that treatment, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
I feel like we can keep our eye on it.
Yeah, I feel like they're also, you know, Guerrilla's also at the point where they can be like, Sony, look, we need more time for this. And again, they might have a smaller team doing, you know, the rumored Killzone for launch or whatever. So we'll see what they have going on. Hopefully, here's a little bit something soon. So we're going to go right into the next story, which is I guess more of a PSA warning thing. Nintendo has been hacked, yes. So Nintendo has disabled the ability to log into your Nintendo account through their Nintendo Network ID after 160,000 accounts have been affected by hacking attempts. Nintendo says the login IDs and passwords have been obtained illegally by some means other than our service, which have been used since the beginning of April to gain access to the account. So this is information like your nickname on there, your date of birth, country, email address. They didn't want to say much about credit card information, stuff like that, but obviously all that's attached to the same weird network that they do with that double network. first off, if you don't have it on for any reason, anyone out there who's listening to this, turn on that
factor authentication,
that double identifying factor thing, whatever, the double security, where it's like that's that double identity thing that they have on there. Definitely add that. This is kind of something that we suffer from the day, in the time we live in here. Xbox constantly gets attacked. Sony, infamously had that giant attack, but all that stuff is always being hacked and your stuff's always being stolen. You gotta just watch it. That's my really aspect. I've never really suffered from anything. Even when that Sony attack, I got a letter that my stuff was compromised, and none of it really ended up being compromised. Just keep an eye out for that stuff. What did you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the story. I got it actually through my email, and I was like, oh boy. So I checked it, and luckily for me, I already had two-factor authentication set up as far as I was concerned. So I was good. I checked my, immediately I went to the bank. I was like, all right, let's see. Luckily, when I make any purchases through a lot of the game consoles, I always do it through PayPal. So there's always that kind of like buffer there. In the event that some fraudulent activity happens, I can always kind of, jump in front of it. So luckily for me, I wasn't one of the ones affected, but I do make a lot of purchases on Nintendo. So I was like, oh crap, if someone's going to get affected, it's going to be me. They definitely got my information on there, but I checked. I didn't see anything. Hopefully, the credit card and were not compromised. But again, they did make a note that about fraudulent what is it called? Purchases? Yeah, fraudulent purchases.
Yeah, fraudulent purchases.
That to me screams some kind of, credit card compromised system. So hopefully they get this, fixed pretty fast. The last thing we need is kind of like the Sony situation. But then again, like that was kind of an anomaly in and of itself going down. That kind of level hack is very, very unique. So hopefully they can bounce back quickly from this. And if anything, hopefully if nobody gets any of their data stolen or anything like that, this just gets everybody to increase their security, which is ultimately a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, again, Nintendo's always kind of been lacking in that kind of source of, like safety and stuff like that. And, you think about how like cumbersome it was like on their older system to buy anything. Because for like a while you couldn't even keep like save cards and all this stuff. It's kind of a hassle. I know it's the ease of it, but at the same time, I see why they do it to protect. Because you never know who's going to hack it. You can create a million protocols to avoid it, and someone's always going to create a way to do it. So, just everyone out there, keep an eye on your stuff. Go and just keep an eye on all your accounts.
Yeah, check that bank account.
Check that bank account, because someone may have brought Mario versus Rabbids 17 times.
Yeah, they're buying 10 copies of Coffee Talk and Cooking Mama Cookstar.
And yeah, yeah.
All right, so we got another interesting story here. Again, rumor as of right now, but we're going to get some information regarding this fairly soon, as of the Tuesday after we're recording this, but this is Sunday. So there are rumors that 2K21 has been canceled. The WWE Games Twitter account announced the news, saying that we'd learn more on April 27th, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The post reads, "We will be sharing details on the future of the WWE 2K franchise, as well as some exciting news on Monday, 7 a.m. Pacific Time." Okay, so it's going to be Monday. So, this is kind of like two stories combined. For a couple days now, we've been hearing that 2K21 is not slated for normal release. It's going to be canceled. And then they kind of follow up to the rumors saying that they have stuff to announce and they have some exciting news. So some people interpreted the exciting news as kind of like a debunking of this rumor. But until we hear concretely that 2K21 is coming out, it could honestly just be PR spin, them trying to keep like a positive look on the situation. But this game still is getting canceled. After the disaster that 2K20 was, and considering the current circumstances of quarantine and a messed up economy, and the fact that games are getting delayed left and right because everybody's trying to get out of this window. Nobody wants to launch right now unless you're like a juggernaut like Final Fantasy and you're already down the track. You have to go, but if you can't avoid it, everybody is avoiding it. So I would not be surprised if this is canceled, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they're just booting this game super late into the year, or just skipping it entirely and just taking 2K21 and kind of making it 2K22. But what do you think about the legitimacy of this rumor?
So again, at the time of recording, the Sunday before the announcement, it's been, again, 2K and like WWE have not stated anything about like 2K21 being officially canceled. There's people who say that on like financial calls and all that stuff that they were canceled. Again, I probably see it being canceled because 2K20 was such a disaster with the way, you know, the old development team left, they hired new people, and they obviously were not up to the task or weren't given the time to do the task, and we don't know the story there on how disastrous that game was. My only thing is, for a while now, even before, like I say, a little bit before 2K20 came out for WWE, that there's been rumors that they were making a smaller wrestling game. Not really sure what it is. A lot of people thought it was like a remaster, but that doesn't make any sense to do. I don't know why you would think you do a remaster. But I assume if 2K21 is canceled, that the better news is that they're probably either some reason remastering something. I don't know why, but they'd be remastering one of their older games, which is a huge issue because all the licensing.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
Some of these guys are not even alive anymore, so yeah. That's so weird to do. But for a while they've been saying they've been that they've been doing more arcade style because of WWE 2Ks and their other yearly ones. They've been very like simulated. I think you probably will get a more arcadey style, like slap 'em up kind of wrestling game, just more focused on the fun, just because they're trying to clear the name out for WWE games. I hope this is not that they're gonna announce, I don't know, 3 more iPhone games, weird card busting ones. Those are, I mean, I'm not a huge WWE fan anymore. The last WWE game I played was, I think, 17, because Xbox gave it to me on Xbox Gold or whatever. Gotcha. And those games are fine, but they are very stiff. They are very like simulated. Like, you gotta waste your time talking in the locker room and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that's what's gonna do. I do think 2K21 will probably be canceled, or at least delayed and folded into 2K. I guess you would just assume 2K22 or whatever they would do. And like I said, as far as the future franchise, it'd have to be some sort of spin-off, I guess, because WWE games have been just in the last couple of years in this weird development spin that people don't like them. Remember they crapped out that really bad Switch port?
Yeah, that was a nightmare.
Yeah, which is, again, I don't buy them there, but people, I guess if I was a wrestling fan, I'd love to have my wrestling game on my Switch. So that's my only thing. I assume 2K21 is canceled, and there's probably some sort of more arcadey spin-off coming.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'll play this game ultimately. The last one I probably played, I remember one that had like the All-Star Champions with like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant on the GameCube or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that was honestly the last one I played. I've seen people play them since, so I know kind of generally how the games have evolved since then. But the last one I went deep into was that, and the last one that I probably bought with my own money was probably WWF Warzone on PS1. That was probably honestly the last one I bought. So I'm by no means like a massive consumer of these games. So I can't speak super educated in terms of like the likelihood of them skipping a year or not. I have no clue what their trajectory is. I don't know too much about the teams who do it. But I know for a fact that nobody in their right mind wants to launch right now. Not to mention if you're coming off a miss like 2K20, there's no way you want. Eventually it starts hurting your bottom line. PR spin is one thing. Critical reception is one thing. But when that bottom line starts really hurting, the shareholders get on you and they want a proper launch. And there's not a chance in hell I think they launch anytime soon. So, and it looks like for the foreseeable future, 2020 is kind of effed in that regard. So them jumping to 2021 makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, that's what I say. Especially once this fall, things are gonna just be coming back, and these games usually launch. I think 2K20 launched in October of 20. They always do the other year. I just don't see. I mean, WWE's in this. I think just even out of their game stance. This is not a wrestling podcast we're gonna go into. They just fired all those people, or laid off tons and tons of wrestlers. I don't know if you saw the news at all.
Yes, I did.
They lost a huge amount of people. Some of the bigger names are just refusing to go to work because they don't want to, because they're afraid.
Reasons, yeah.
They have families and stuff that they don't want to infect. And I know they're kind of taking precautions. So they're in a weird spot anyway. I'm like, who do you even put in the game if you just laid off half your staff and everyone's complaining that they're being forced to work for. Because I know there's that anonymous wrestler that still hasn't broken who it was, who's like, no, we're being forced to work, and if we're not gonna come to work, we're gonna get fired.
Yeah, I read that story. Messy.
So yeah, they're in a messy situation in general. Again, most WWE games, I mean, these are games that use likenesses. It has to be mocap. So I don't know how, you can't do mocap like we just mentioned. You can't do mocap right now. So how do you produce one right now in general? Unless again you go for a different spin. But we'll do a small update unless it's a bigger story for next week. Because again, we will know this time tomorrow. We should know.
Yeah, pretty much. We'll keep an eye on it.
Yep. All right. So it's been a while since we talked about our favorite little trucker going on here, Google Stadia. So Google is hosting another Stadia Connect, which is their pretty much kind of press conference, direct kind of style thing, on Tuesday, April 28th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. over here Eastern time on YouTube. And so this is just in general. Let me bring up the article. This article comes from IGN's Adam Bankhurst. Google is hosting another Stadia Connect on Tuesday, April 28th at 9 a.m. on YouTube. Those who tune in will hear from the team and see new games coming to Stadia. A short teaser accompanied by an announcement came on Twitter. This is shortly after they just announced that free... Now, this is... You gotta be careful the way you phrase it. The free Stadia accounts, which is you can access Stadia games that you have to repurchase.
It's a trial. It's a trial,
yeah,
and
it's
it's
a
not
trial,
the free service that they talked about when they were marketing the service initially. It's not that.
Yeah. It's so which caps you off at like 1080p. You can't hit the 4K and all that kind of stuff like that. So in response to the news itself, we should also take a chance to kind of, I guess, give our bigger opinion and update on Stadia, because I'll be honest, Stadia's been quiet for a long time. Last I remember, they were really amping up that they had Destiny on there, which was weird because Destiny 2 is free to play everywhere else, and it's like so easy to access now more than ever. It came to Steam, it came off that Blizzard network and stuff like that. So, one, what is your thoughts on this kind of their whatever they call it, the Stadia Connect? So I don't know, do you think anything's gonna be announced that's worthy there to even pay attention to? And in general, what are your thoughts on what's on Stadia's journey so far?
Yeah, so I mean, and I'm gonna try my best to be as fair to Stadia as possible. I understand they do have some contingent of a fan base, and they're playing to them. So I don't want to completely crap on the service. Some people have positive experiences with this, so I'd be remiss to act like those people don't exist. For me, I've paid kind of tangential connection to, or paid attention to some of the smaller announcements they've been making on Twitter and on their YouTube. And generally speaking, I found most of the offering to be pretty unremarkable. There's no major exclusives on there. A lot of the games that they're bringing to the service that they're like, hey, 4 more new games, are all games that have been not even the 2018 releases. We're talking about substantially older releases that are widely accessible for a much cheaper price point. So generally speaking, I think a lot of the offerings on Stadia have been super unremarkable, and they're kind of fighting an uphill battle with getting people to jump onto the service, because again, like, devs don't want to put in the effort to bring their games to Stadia because there's no one there, but nobody will come there until devs put their games on Stadia. So they're kind of like in a tricky spiral, and I'm positive on them in the regard that I think their format, not as it is, not in the marketing structure, not the payment structure, but the idea of streaming games, this in conjunction with things like xCloud, and perhaps in some forms PlayStation Now, is in many ways the future of gaming. I think that. And I think streaming games is ultimately, once that broadband internet is widely accessible everywhere, will be the direction everybody would like to go into, or at least that being a mainstream offering. Kind of like when digital first came in, like, not everybody wanted to jump onto it, but that became an option, and now everybody's slowly moving that way. I think streaming will be kind of the same way, and there's limitations to that. I understand that. But the problem is, I guess the question remains is it's not so much that is streaming the future of gaming, but is Stadia going to be the one to offer it? And as of right now, I don't have the necessary evidence to believe that they are. I don't want to see them fail necessarily because, again, competition breeds excellence, and another player in the game industry keeping, Microsoft and Sony, on their toes in some capacity, I think is generally a positive thing. But yeah, as of right now, Stadia is kind of like a non-factor. I do see this, Stadia fanboy accounts trying to argue with people on Twitter. It's not really a thing. I'm actually surprised at the drip feed approach that they've had to marketing a new service. Google's a massive conglomerate with a mass amount of relationships. So I'm surprised they haven't been able to leverage that more effectively into getting some bigger titles. Like the fact that Doom Eternal wasn't on Stadia day one is nuts to me. Why is that not there? If it's coming everywhere, and Switch is obviously an exception that requires its own level of optimization and stuff like that. But if Stadia is supposedly this massive powerhouse, power is no longer a problem. You could play in 4K, 1,000 frames per second. You don't have to worry about nothing. Why is this multi-platform game with no real exclusivity anywhere not on your platform? And they could be like, okay, well, Bethesda didn't really want to work with us that closely and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you guys got to figure that out if you want to make this service viable. And I have little faith in Stadia, not because of just what Stadia is, but because of Google's complete unwillingness to commit to a service. They introduce things and then they kind of let it fall by the wayside. And I just would hate to see people invest in a service, put money, they buy these ambassador program type situations where they buy the controller and they buy the Chromecast and they hook it up into their TV. They're buying games full priced on there to play, I don't know, friggin' Super Meat Boy. And then fast forward, a couple years and it's like, Google, we're not making money off this, we're done. And then these people are kind of just ish out of luck. I just would hate to see that. So as of right now, I don't take Stadia that seriously. I take streaming games very seriously, and I think that's in many ways the future of gaming. But I just don't have any reason to believe that it's going to be through them.
Yeah, they just aren't, like you said. You wrapped it up pretty well. I like that. They're just not committed. They're not being too open, because when obviously Stadia launched with a lot of issues, and when people were asking, how come our games aren't streaming in 4K, they blame the developers. They're like, no, your developers didn't do it. When Mortal Kombat came out, right? It was Mortal Kombat thing that came out.
11, yeah.
Yeah, 11 that came to it, and it ran like I'll be honest, it ran like garbage. This was at the height of Mortal Kombat with everyone trying to practice for all these tournaments, and it was running terribly. The story mode was running terribly. They didn't take it. They're like, oh, NetherRealm must have not enhanced it or optimized it to run on Stadia. Well, you got to give them a platform. You can't tell them, be like, throw them a kit and be like, figure it out. It's not how it works. You've got to stand by them and be like, listen, we understand we have some issues. I don't know what what the answer would be if for a while just bring every game to not 4K to strengthen that. But it's personally, I obviously haven't tried Stadia. I'll be honest with that. I did try Project xCloud, and I even went to the point, well, I have an iPhone, so I had to play. My only option was to play the Master Chief Collection. I wasn't like people who have Androids who were able to dabble a little bit more, but it was super simple to. After I had all the stuff downloaded, because that's Apple's fault, it was super simple to touch an icon, sync my control to my phone, and just stream Halo. It was super, super easy. And from what I've seen most people talk about on Stadia, it's not that simple. Now, again, like we said, I know there are certain people who had a great experience, and that's good for them. And, there's other people who it's pretty clear as day being supported and paid by Google.
Yeah.
And they're part-timers on Google.
And they don't want to talk about that, though. They don't want to talk about that.
They never discuss it. That's one issue I have on YouTuber I follow. And she's always like, oh, no, yeah, I've got no problem with Stadia. I think I've mentioned before that I follow her. And she's like, I've got no problem. Like, yeah, but you're also part-timing working for Google, and I think was married to a guy from Google or something like that. So it's like, kind of have the hookup. Like, she had gotten all this stuff super early. I'm like, it's hard to take your word for it. It's like if I worked for Sony and been like, nah, the PS5 is the best thing ever. Well, obviously I'm going to say that.
Which we do see that quite often, but they also don't want to talk about that, do they?
No, that's what I'm saying. So Stadia's kind of got to start being upfront, be like, listen, things are not the way we need to be. They have to start trying to focus on, if you want to be a competitor, you got to be day one. Like you said, you were able to get Doom Eternal on Xbox, on PlayStation, and on PC. Day one, your choice. Obviously Switch, we all knew was coming a little bit later. You can't come out and be like, well, hey guys, don't play Doom Eternal. Come play Final Fantasy 15 again.
Which is free on Game Pass right now.
Which is free on Game Pass. When I was working at GameStop, you could get the Game of the Year Royal Edition for $15. Yeah. I'm like, guys.
It's like, come on, guys.
Come on. What are you doing? You want me to play a 4-year-old game and then pay the same price that almost Doom Eternal was coming out at? So this is where there's an issue. And people are confused, actually, because I've spoken to a few people who are like confused. They're like, yeah, but isn't it just a service? I'm like, no, yes, it's a service you pay for, and then you gotta purchase the games. And I know there's a lot of back and forth to it. People try to compare it to Game Pass, and it's not like Game Pass, because that's like if Game Pass you charged your $15 a month, and then on top of that, another $45 or whatever it is for another one. Like, I just downloaded Gears Tactics that comes out this week on Game Pass. I didn't have to buy it again, though. I didn't have to pay my gold subscription or my ultimate Game Pass subscription on top of another 30, 40. It's just, they're not clear. These are things that they kind of hid in their talks, and I hope from the Stadia Connect on Tuesday that they're a little bit more clear on what they want to do. Because I remember that first when Stadia was announced, I understood nothing. They're sitting there talking about all this, optics and all the stuff and how fast it's going to be, and then when it hit launch, none of that was there. All those features were ripped out. Remember, you couldn't play multiplayer games or whatever it was, and they were super underwhelming, and they were super just not together. And I think that's what they have to do is restructure themselves, be clear on your messaging. They are not being clear. They're very being like tongue-in-cheek, lying. The same people I see, they always have like these influence. Well, they probably won't now because of the COVID situation.
Yeah.
The same influencers that I see on stage, I don't want them to be the ones writing reviews on Twitter, because, well, it's a conflict of interest. Obviously, if Google flies me out in a private jet with nice sparkling orange juice and tells me to play, whatever 2014 game they want, the Tomb Raider game on Stadia, obviously I'm going to be more, inclined to say, yeah, it works super nice. Yeah, obviously. But I want the real people, like, big YouTuber Angry Joe was not able to get his Stadia for a long time. And he was like, listen, I wasn't able to review it because they didn't want to send it to me. The supply was super short. They were not responsive on. I've seen a lot of people been like who wanted not just refunds, but tracking was an issue. The service did not work in their areas like at all, and they were just not allowed refunds. They were not allowed some sort of repercussions or compensation. And that's the real big thing: is Stadia has to be clear, has to be confident, because they talk about their stuff like they're not confident, and you gotta just have the features. Your features aren't there, the games aren't there, and the service is not there. What do you have going for yourself?
Yeah, and I mean, great points there. I hate to be like doom and gloom about this, because I think for some people, is a lot to like about this service. But I think just like you can talk about how your experience with Stadia has been overwhelmingly positive, and the frame rates are beautiful, and it looks great, and the games start seamlessly, and they boot up, and this is the gaming in the future, and it's an amazing experience. I think that is just as valid of a perspective as, hey, I booted this up, and it looked like a checkerboard on my screen, and it was chugging along like some broken claymation movie. Like, I think that's a valid perspective too to note. I would also like to note the fact that I think we're having a very different conversation if Stadia launches truly like the Netflix of gaming. And what I mean by that is, imagine if you have like a Netflix, like a streaming service where you stream movies, but you have to pay for every single movie or show on that service. Mm-hmm. It kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? You're paying a subscription fee for this service, to access things that you're also going to pay for. But imagine if you really do have a Game Pass style service where you can boot up and stream those games immediately, and you pay this one time a month fee. whether that is, anywhere from $15 to $45, that's for them to figure out and to see what, monetization strategies are most effective. But I honestly think that they need to completely re-examine their pay structure if they really want to break into the mainstream. And if they want to change it later down the line and be like, all right, now that we have all these early adopters, all these people, they have a player base of a couple 100,000, now we could change the pay structure into something where maybe you have to pay like discounted rates on certain properties, like when games leave Game Pass. That is something I think that will resonate with the mainstream game community way more than what they have right now, because as of right now, their offering is, hey, do you want to play games that you probably already have in varying quality? It might be better, it may be substantially worse, but it's going to be inconsistent pretty normally depending on where you live, and also pay more for that game than you'd pay on other services. The value proposition's all screwed up right now, and there's little to no reason to switch to Stadia if you're not one like a tech junkie. If you're into new tech period, then yeah, go for it. But if you're not a tech junkie and you own some console or PC, there's literally no reason to go to Stadia. There's no thing that Stadia is offering right now that is not available just as good, if not better, elsewhere for a cheaper price. Like, we just got to be honest with it. So, I mean, I want to be fair to them, and I'm not writing them off completely. I don't have Stadia. I've seen it played. I've dabbled in it lightly with Destiny at a friend's house. So I know lightly how the experience is. And I know some people may take issue and umbrage with that. Be like, hey, if you're not there playing Stadia every day, you don't have the right to speak on it. But, I mean, I think it stands to say that literally no one's playing this. So should no one have an opinion on this? Because guess what? You guys are a super minority of people who even give a crap about this service. So, I mean, I paid attention to it. I watch it. I watch all the Digital Foundry stuff and like that. And frankly, I'm not impressed. Yep. So I wish them the best. And I hope the early adopters into this program ultimately have a positive experience and get their money's worth out of it. But as of right now, I see no reason to take them that seriously when they're not really putting forth the effort into making a solid value proposition to the average consumer.
Yeah, I think that's why also this event on Tuesday, I hope they're not underplaying it / overplaying it or overhyping it, because if it comes out and it's just like a bunch of nonsense talk about how good it is, if they don't realize it or address the issues, then there's going to be a lot of problems. If they're just going to talk about how many players they had at one point, at launch we had this many people. Well, how many people are still there now? That's the kind of stuff we need to see. So I just hope they don't try to sugarcoat any of that nonsense, and at the same time don't treat like this is a whatever. So hopefully they understand what they're doing. I don't even see so when Stadia was coming out and was out, that weird commercial was on YouTube everywhere. No matter what video I clicked, that ad where that guy would come out and start floating in the air, yelling Stadia. I don't see any ads. I see no one talking about it. I don't see this on any online website. So hopefully they do. Hopefully they've been really reworking their tools and reevaluating their structure.
Yeah, it's strange, man. I mean, they're Google. They own YouTube. I mean, and I guess maybe to avoid some kind of like optical issue in terms of conflict of interest, they're not trying to inject their ads into everything still. But I mean, hey, do you want a successful platform or not? I mean, you have to make that decision. And I understand they're like, okay, we're something different than the rest of the game industry. We're trying to basically reinvent the wheel here and take the game industry into the future. But there's such a thing as looking at your competition, seeing what works, and adapting that to your platform. And their strategy right now comes off a little bit tone deaf. But again, I wish them nothing but success. But as of right now, there's not a chance in how I put a dime towards their service until they really give me a reason to switch over, or at least bring it into my current gaming library.
Exactly.
All right, so our last story for today before we go into our loose topic is an interesting story that a lot of people have been overlooking, but I think it's worth noting. So there's an activist investor named ValueAct Capital Partners, and they have basically built a stake of $1.1 billion or 2% minority stake in Nintendo, according to a letter seen by Reuters. A bet that digital software distribution and development of new products will fuel growth at this Japanese gaming company of Nintendo. They started buying stock back in April 2019, and they've since basically, to current date, built that kind of $1.1 billion stake in Nintendo, which is is sizable. Now, it's important to remember, 1.1 billion, as big as that is, that's only about 2% of Nintendo. This is a massive, incredibly old company that, I mean, by no means is ValueAct controlling Nintendo. It's not one of those situations of, like, Ubisoft back in the day where they were getting bought out for a second. They said Nintendo's future is bright, ValueAct wrote in his letter, adding that there's potential for growth both in the software business and room for the company to transform itself into a broader entertainment company. And I wanted to bring up this story because now that they're getting, big flushes of cash from different places who have almost different visions or more ambitious visions for Nintendo's future, I feel like in many ways during the transitionary period of kind of the old guard moving on through, either going to different countries, companies, some people are getting a little older and passing away. There's various different situations, but you're getting a lot of new faces in there, especially with like Doug Bowser and stuff like that. New people are coming in, new presidents, new developers are gonna surely come. Miyamoto, he's still an absolute juggernaut in the game industry. But you're going to see new names coming out of Nintendo outside of Miyamoto who are going to start, launching new IPs and stuff like that. So I just wanted to talk about, what do you think the future of Nintendo looks like now that eventually the guard is going to be changing and you're going to have a lot of fresh faces over there?
I think they're just gonna keep growing as, like they keep saying, a broader entertainment company. Nintendo is always gonna be first and foremost, a gaming business. I would assume, they're always gonna keep making their games. Whether they stay in the hardware section forever is a little bit more debatable. That might be a hit or miss. We don't know where that could, because things were pretty shaky right up to the Switch. Everyone thought they were gonna go third party, something like that. And I really don't see that happening now, obviously thanks to the success of the Switch. But I see them growing in a different aspect. And we can already see this with that, didn't they team up with Universal for... Was it Universal they teamed up with for that?
Yeah, the amusement park.
The amusement park, and, I know they're having all these other kind of stuff that they need to be working on.
Lego,
I think that, too. Yeah, they got that weird Lego thing. That's the stuff I think we're going to start seeing. I think it's slowly going to grow into, they are going to start producing or teaming up with, film industries. I don't think some of these IPs they have work as films. It'd probably be better like some sort of Netflix series, or who knows what they would even team up with.
Well, they're working with Illumination, I know, for that Mario.
That Mario movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because who knows? That'll probably start off something. It's either going to start something off or not going to start something off. I don't know how that's going to be. It's been a while since we've heard of anything, though, either, so it's been too quiet for them. I think that's what we're going to see, though. We're going to see them obviously work a little bit more with, industry parks and stuff like that, and having, whatever, a Mario Kart ride. And more importantly, we're going to see them really just expanding into a full-fledged business, which is, it seems like it's a little late because, you've had Microsoft been working on not only hardware, but, and software, but they've done, behind the scene works on movies and animations and all these other stuff. And Sony, obviously, really full-fledged now, launching, their Sony Pictures, or their Sony, their PlayStation more thing. Sony obviously has always been in movies. They hold the rights to Spider-Man, all that kind of stuff. So I think you're going to just see Nintendo start doing that kind of stuff. It's just coming out of nowhere with weird announcements. And Nintendo being Nintendo, and everyone's in good faith with them right now, everyone's going to love those announcements. So that's what I really see them. I just see them really expanding into sections where you don't know. I know there's always people who are always wishing that they just start working with other people, putting their old titles elsewhere and stuff like that. And I think that's fine, and that will come in due time. But I think you're going to see Nintendo just, a Nintendo Lego set like that, when just no one would ever really see that coming. Like a Nintendo Lego game, maybe we would have understood, but this is not, as of right now, there's no Lego Mario. It's just that weird toy setup. And, it's just going to be a weird situation. And that's good that, after so much time and all these partners have started to build, stake and stuff like that, because they're going to be the ones giving Nintendo new ideas. Nintendo stuck to such old ways of thinking for Wii and Wii U, and we saw for so many years how that was hurting them. They started, investing in newer ideas, putting, a hybrid handheld / console mixed together. That's not something Nintendo would have done. They want to make, a cheaper Mario Kart game for handheld and a cheaper and a better quote unquote Mario game for their console. It's so now they have that one solid Mario game instead. So just I think that old way of thinking is true. The way you were mentioning that those older guys are leaving. They're leaving to retire, to spend their the time they have left with their families and stuff like that. And now it's the people that those people inspired is what's going to help take over and push the business into a just broader company where Nintendo doesn't just think, when you hear Nintendo, it won't just be like, oh yeah, their newest Mario game. And I think that's what they need, and that's what we're going to start seeing.
Yeah, I think the major difference we're going to see between this new era coming forward, and some of the previous eras from Nintendo is the lack of insularity. Nintendo was definitely kind of like an isolationist nation for a long time, where it's like, it's us or we're messing with our own. We have our own IP. We have our own consoles. We don't need the relationships. We're fine. And I feel like in many ways it made sense, because every time they tried to mix with someone else, things kind of hit the fan for whatever reason or not. They make the Mario and Luigi movie, and look how that turned out. It's a meme now. They get involved with PlayStation to have the disc peripheral for the new console. That kind of falls apart. Now, obviously, they burnt PlayStation on that one, but that's another story for another time. Mm-hmm. But now, obviously, they're willing to forge those relationships, and Nintendo's incredibly protective of their IP. We know that. You do not play with their IP, they'll be on you quick. Whether you're a dude with 15 subs or 15 million, they're on you. So they're very protective, and I don't think that goes anywhere, but I think they see a way of how you can protect your IP and hold them in high regard and keep it at a high caliber of quality in terms of releases related to your IP, without necessarily having like a stranglehold where nobody can touch it. Don't look at Mario, don't look at Yoshi, they're ours, you can't mess with them. Obviously with Ubisoft, they worked with the Rabbids games, and they were able to build something pretty awesome together. And now they got the Universal deal. They're willing to deal with them and have kind of a physical Nintendo location in terms of that amusement park. They're willing to work with Illumination to translate their properties to movies, for example. They're working with Lego to have kind of the toys. So they're willing to forge these relationships outside of the traditional gaming ecosystem to kind of expand the money, to expand the company, to expand the reach. And I think that's generally a positive thing. And I think a lot of the new guards see the opportunities that lie outside of that. And even if you could read lightly into this, their kind of camaraderie with Xbox, I think, is something to be noted as well. The fact that they're willing to even work within the industry. Now, Sony and Nintendo working together is a little bit farther from happening.
Yeah, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, that's going to be a real long time. There's still a bit of bad blood there, understandably. But I think for even right now, Nintendo's starting to see, listen, not everybody is trying to step on our toes. And I think there's a lot of money and opportunity to be gained by partnerships across all different environments, all different industries, and even within their own industry. They finally see in many ways that, listen, Xbox is not necessarily trying to do what we do, and we can both exist within this ecosystem and work together. And I would love to see a time, and I understand fanboys have their own opinions, I like this lane, I like it separate, blah, blah, blah. But I think there's a beautiful thing to be said that, what if you can see, Nintendo be like, listen, we're not killing our IP and losing money by putting some of our NES titles in a nice collection for a PlayStation console. Honestly. Now, I think we're far from seeing that, but I think that is the kind of thinking that we'll see from Nintendo going forward. And a lot of people were trying to say, oh, Nintendo's going to go third party because they're failing. But I think actually they can go third party because they're succeeding. Mm-hmm. Because they're seeing so much returns within their own ecosystem that it doesn't hurt to put small things out elsewhere. Now, again, you ain't going to see Mario Odyssey 2 on the Xbox Series X. That ain't going to happen. Not anytime soon.
No, I don't ever.
But I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that's let's put Super Mario Collection, 1, 2, and 3, the All-Stars situation on Xbox Game Pass. I don't think that's insane, because they're not losing any money from that. Trust me, they ain't hurting for cash in terms of people, interested in their properties in their own ecosystem. So I think that Nintendo, for many reasons, has a lot to gain and is fairly likely to expand their horizons. And it seems unlikely now, but again, like, would you have said that at any point where they have had a commercial with an Xbox and a Switch in the same commercial?
Yeah.
I think 20 years ago you say there's not a chance in hell that ever happens, and look where we are now. So I say don't write it off completely, and keep your eye on it, because I think the game industry is going to change a lot these next two, especially with crossplay. Again, with all that bad blood kind of subsiding, the days of like the Sega does what Nintendo don't and Crash screaming outside the Nintendo headquarters, that's kind of like a remnant of a bygone era.
Yeah.
Console agnosticism is higher than ever. You're getting way more people who don't necessarily ride or die for a single console the way that they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes the people who do that look even freaking crazier on Twitter, because we see y'all and you looking nuts. It's not 1992 anymore. Relax. But yeah, man, I think the future of Nintendo is really bright, and I don't think that it's either they stay in their own ecosystem and succeed, or they go third party and die. I don't think that's an either or situation. I think they can succeed and expand at the exact same time.
Yeah, and I think Nintendo knows that more now than ever, and that's, what comes to mind is, that the crossplay stuff, where them and Xbox teamed up for that crossplay thing for Fortnite, and they made Sony look like fools.
Yeah.
They twisted Sony's arm, because crossplay was always told can't be done, this, blah, 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 and
can't ensure safety.
All that stuff to our players. Most people play it on our systems anyway. None of that stuff flew. And Nintendo's a big one who was not like, no, crossplay, got to keep it safe, the children, we don't know who's on the other mic. And what happened? Microsoft saw the tea leaves, and they were allowing crossplay with the PC stuff for a while. And then they got Nintendo on board. They showed Nintendo, listen, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. And
fast forward, we have crossplay.
And now you have crossplay.
What happened? Did Sony collapse? Did Xbox cease existence? No. Is Nintendo? No, nothing happened. People are just able to play with each other.
Nobody's sales were affected. A lot of Fortnite players are still on the systems they were playing. People didn't abandon ship because they did that. And unfortunately, it did take Microsoft and Nintendo to team up and be like, Sony, what are you doing? And that's why people like to crap on Fortnite, but it did something. It created this new generation where the new Call of Duty is now, you have your settings where you can, lock up on what system you want to play, but it's crossplay. You have Sony crossplaying with PC in that new Predator game. These are things, Rocket League and all that stuff. Rocket League couldn't even twist them to do it, and once Fortnite
did,
they tried.
They tried.
Sony had to leave that old thinking behind, and I think with this investment in Nintendo and all these other companies, we'll start, lightly playing, because they know the console war era is over. It's not like you have a Sega or an SNES. Like right behind me, I have the collector's edition of Death Stranding. On top of that, I have the Gears 5 Xbox One, and then on top of that, I have my Nintendo Switch box. And it's like, that's what, I didn't get these all at one time because I'm not rich, but but that's where people look, or people are like, no, yeah, I have this, and this, and I have this, and this. And it's like, I play this game on this game because I want to. And having that choice
will always exist. People are always gonna have a preference, but and people are always gonna bicker and be like, listen, where I play is better than you because of A, B, and C. But the days of this vitriolic hatred and these name calling and stuff like that, besides a couple trolls on Twitter, and then the YouTube comment section, they're not really shaping the narrative in any substantive way, and these are not the people affecting the bottom line. The average consumer plays what they want, when they want, wherever they want, to be honest. And I think there's room for everybody to succeed, and I'm just glad that we're in a place now where everybody can see it, especially Nintendo, who I feel like, to wide industry trends, tend to be a little slower at it. So I think the fact that, in 2020 right now, they're seeing the benefits of more camaraderie amongst their peers and fellow industry people is a generally positive thing for the industry. And again, I see some people not super fond of it because they're kind of scared of the idea of monopolies and companies working together to control everything. One company, like if there's no competition, then one company kind of dominates it all, and they kind of cite specifically like Disney, for example, buying up everything and controlling everything.
Correct.
But I think we're far from that, and I think what working in conjunction with is far from monopolizing and creating one center kind of product without any type of variation. I think we're so far from that, and not even heading in that direction, that that's not something we really need to be afraid of.
No, yeah, again, these companies are going to start working with each other, and it's going to be, they're going to push each other to the extent, because you got to remember, we all remember before the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One came out, there was that, the PlayStation, and we won't ever see really a jab like this anymore, where they're like, how to share a game, and was them handing
the hand over the game.
But
I love that.
Because Sony did that, Xbox was forced to change their weird, remember how you were supposed to share games with someone? With that weird sign-in, download, blah, blah, blah. Like, this super convoluted... I'm like, there's no reason for me not to just hand you my Blu-ray disc and be like, yo, play this game. And, again, the days of that Sony doing that kind of, like, publicity stunt is way over. That video is still hilarious to me. But small things like that is what pushes. So, these companies have to learn from each other, and that's what that's what they are doing, and they're going to continue to do.
Yeah, all right. So we can get into our loose topic now. This is one I'm excited for. Mm-hmm. So obviously the Game of the Year conversation happens towards the end of the year. You get it around October, November, once everything's out. But it's important, I think, like in quarters at least, to kind of take what's been released so far and give your kind of impressions on what your personal Game of the Year so far is. So I think what we can format this is we could say each of our respective, what we think is our personal Game of the Year, and then we can have like a general conversation on this year in gaming in general, and some of the heavy hitters, and some of the heavy hitters we think to come that can give some of the ones that are already out a run for their money. Okay. So, Steve, what's your personal Game of the Year so far?
So, as of right now, and I'm sure it may be similar to many people's, my Game of the Year, as of right now of 2020, has to be Final Fantasy VII Remake. And, I was looking at really the games I've played this year, and, we'll get into it more in a second, but, like, when I think back to, it was pretty much between Final Fantasy and Doom. Okay. And, when I have to think of them as the whole package, where Doom had so many things where I just rolled my eyes on, and like the ending kind of fell apart. Where Final Fantasy, as the same, had so many things I was just like, ugh, and I have a lot of problems, and we'll discuss that when we do the full spoiler cast. But when I think about the games I kept talking to people about, the games I kept looking looking into things about, and me and my friend had a conversation the other day for like 2.5 hours about Final Fantasy, because him and I haven't seen each other in a little bit, and it was just a constant thing. It's like we discussed Doom, we're like, yeah, that was great, ripping this head off, this section, this power up was super cool, and this gun was cool, and that's where the conversation ended. When we were talking about Final Fantasy, I think Final Fantasy itself cheats because there's so much more to come, and I know what's coming, and I can't wait to see some of that stuff into fruition and see other characters. Like I can't wait to see Vincent in Final Fantasy. Oh my goodness, I can't wait.
Yuffie, Kate Sith. There's so many cool characters to come. Vincent Valentine.
I can't wait for it. It's full-fledged. I'm assuming this is probably going to be a section you play as Zack Fair. So those are the things that I can't wait, and I had to give to Final Fantasy, not just because of nostalgia, because as much as I like Final Fantasy VII's world with all their movies and games, I was very skeptical that this game wasn't gonna ever get remade and didn't need to be remade, and now I cannot wait for part 2 and 3 and 4 and whatever they end up doing. But that's the really only contender right now, because when I look at the rest of these games that I've been playing in 2020, some of them are obviously not 2020 games. When I look at those games, I can't give it to My Hero. I can't give an anime fighter that, there's other close ones that, my other close one would, like I said, was Doom Eternal, because that's the only thing. And Persona 5, I was very iffy on giving even a classification of a game as a new game anyway. So what's your game so far, 2020?
Yeah, so my Game of the Year is also Final Fantasy VII. I have a lot of positive feelings, a couple small little negative things about it, but generally speaking, I think it's a phenomenal game. I won't get super into it again because we have that Final Fantasy VII Remake spoiler cast coming next week, so we can finally talk in depth about that, and I'll get into my my skepticisms about like, you know, how they're gonna somehow adapt this massive game considering the pace they're going at. But that's a discussion for another cast. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake is definitely my game of the year so far. A close second for me is Animal Crossing. I really, really enjoy it. It's in many ways a simple formula perfected. Now, there's a lot wrong with this game. The way the online infrastructure is and the weird limitations they put on stuff. And when somebody's in your town, you have to stop when they freaking go through a door. And the fact that you can't change a painting on your wall when they're in your town because it locks down. And that's probably because of memory limitations and the fact that they can't necessarily render a dynamic world with multiple players at the same time. It's a strange limitation for them to have for a Nintendo first-party game. But generally speaking, yeah, I love Animal Crossing. I have so much fun for it. And it's my most played game of the year, so I'd be remiss not to put it at like a very close second for me. Doom Eternal I also have a ton of love for, but I haven't completed yet. So that's a game that I play very piecemeal. Like I kind of inject it in between other games and I pay like an hour or two here and there and kind of just slowly work my way through the game because I enjoy it so much that it's not one of those games for me personally that I'm like rushing through to get to some kind of narrative. It's all experience based for me, that it's like I want that Doom experience of that fast, kinetic, chaotic gameplay. And I need to be in certain moods for that. That's not something that I'm super invested in the lore, so I don't have to find a need to like run through it. Like I'm not rushing to get my head bashed in by marauders with shields. That's not something I'm rushing to get to. I'll get to there when I'm ready to cry. But in the meantime, so what is your thought on this year in games in general? Now, understanding that the COVID-19 pandemic has put us in a weird position where a lot of games that should be out soon are not out yet. But and are not going to be out for some time now. But we got some heavy hitters on the Horizon coming soon, no pun intended. But what do you think about this year so far, and what do you think about this year in totality? What do you think is our potential game of the year contenders?
Okay, so as looking at the games that's come out in 2020, I don't remember a year that's been so filled with variety. Now I wrote some down here as some mentions and just some other things that have come out. So we had Dreams go into full effect. My Heroes 1's Justice 2, Doom Eternal, Animal Crossing, Resident Evil 3, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Bleeding Edge, Persona 5 Royal, not to mention Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. You had Call of Duty Warzone, and Half-Life came back. You know, with Half-Life Alyx, and Predator. Obviously, Predator Hunting Grounds being the new, multiplayer centric game. I just don't think I could have guessed this lineup of games. Like,
did Neo 2 come out this year?
Neo 2, I'll check for you right now. Actually,
because if Neo 2 came out this year, I want to give a quick shout out to them too.
Yeah, let me see. Neo 2, that was March.
Yeah. Okay. Shout out. I just want to give a quick shout out to Neo 2 because I know a lot of people are loving that game.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't mention it on the games we're playing, but a quick injection. I did restart Neo. So
the original?
Yeah, the original, the first one.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it's brutal though. Like,
they ain't playing with you.
There's one time like I felt my hands squeeze and I heard my control just like, and I was like, break your controller? Oh no! So I put Persona in.
Bring you back to the Mad Catz days.
Yeah. So, but again, this is such a weird lineup of games, and for the most part, I know like Bleeding Edge was really the only game on this list. I think. Let me look at it again. Bleeding Edge and Dragon Ball Z Kakarot were the games that really didn't hit what they should have hit. They were very underwhelming and I'm a huge, as big of a Dragon Ball fan I am, and I have not played. I technically did play Kakarot, but I did not buy it because that game is not too good. It's
yeah, I knew that game was in trouble. The fact that a mainstream like big Dragon Ball Z came out and no one has said anything. Yeah. I was like, that's no good.
Yeah, there's a lot wrong with it, and there's a lot wrong with it. But again, the variety of this year, like this, to think that the same day I played Doom Eternal, I also was planting flowers in Animal Crossing. The same day after I was done running away from Nemesis, a couple of days later I was, blowing up the reactor in Final Fantasy VII, and days later I was playing Persona. I was running around Mementos, and like, it's such a weird buffet of titles and variety of gameplays, like puzzles, this is fighting, this is this. And so I think games, the gaming year of 2020 has been definitely a variety one, smushed in this weird time where people knew the next generation was coming / supposed to come, on top of everything coming to a halt society wise, because just people can't do much else besides watch movies and play games right now at home. So some of these games really, really benefited from that. Obviously, I think Final Fantasy got a huge push from that, and so did Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing. And I think it's just been such a weird year because I don't think I realized these titles were all kind of back to back, and it's only March. I mean, it's only April, and the rest of the year was supposed to continue. The rest of the year was supposed to continue this stream. Before delays and stuff, at this time, a couple of months ago, we would have been playing Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
I have behind me, I have the Johnny Silverhand figure, which I forgot I pre-ordered because it was supposed to come out the same day the game did.
Yeah,
it was
April, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to, and don't get me wrong, I know they need a lot of time, but man, I would have loved to have that game by now.
Yeah, how amazing would that have been in quarantine?
Man. So looking at games that are still slated to come out now, I only went with a few that are almost definite coming. So the only one I really don't know, there's only 2 on this list that I kind of put an asterisk next to, and that's Halo Infinite and The Last of Us 2.
Yep.
Because The Last of Us 2 is delayed indefinitely. I don't know if we will get it this year. Halo Infinite is in the same situation where they've been not talking about it for so long.
That's tied to launch, and as of right now, the console is slated for launch, but again, obviously, that could be bumped to next year. So.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's supposed to be both, because there's an Xbox One version of Halo.
Yep.
So I put an asterisk there because that's in this weirdness. But other games that are supposed to be coming out, so Wonderful 101 Remaster on everything. Ghost of Tsushima is, as of right now, not delayed. We have that Ninjala that's on Switch. That I don't know if you saw that Ninja Splatoon fighting stretchy arm.
It's like they showed that off some time ago, so I'm surprised that's just coming out now.
Yeah, but that is a free-to-play game, which I don't remember it being announced as a free-to-play game. But anyway, that's a free-to-play game. I think there's a beta soon, and it releases in May or something like that. Marvel's Avengers, we're supposed to have played by now. So that's delayed into... Well, I wouldn't have played it. Maybe I would have played it by now.
That's September, right?
That is now, as of right now, September. Okay. Destroy All Humans remake has been THQ.
That's exciting.
I'm super excited for that game because I love that franchise. To see that come back, I'm super excited for it. They've never given a date in general, I believe. I think even now they still probably will not give a date. The last time I heard anything about it is when they announced that $400 collector's edition.
Yeah, I remember that.
They did that in the SpongeBob game or something like that. It has a crazy expensive collector's edition. And then the other game looking forward to upcoming is obviously Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
Which I think is going to be the big fall game. I think, the summer's going to be sort of a drought, small titles, indie titles, and some of these other games I mentioned will probably be sprinkled throughout there. Besides Ghost of Tsushima, if that does not get delayed. I think from Ghost, there's not going to be much to really talk about. There'll be small titles, like I said. And then it's pretty much radio silence until Cyberpunk hits, if Cyberpunk still hits this fall. And if I add that list to the list that's already been out and the other games we mentioned, that's still a crazy year. It's a crazy year to think that at the same time that you did all this stuff back to back. It's just an insane year to think of that. And I just don't... the only word to recap this year is just variety and strange. It's just been a strange variety of games.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean... And I'm kind of trying to put my headspace into fast forwarding to December, when all's said and done and nothing else is delayed. Let's just say everything as it's slated right now does come out. What are the guys standing at the top? What are the big heavy hitters? Some of them are going to get bumped, I think. Some of the heavy hitters from the top of the year are probably not going to resonate all the way down to there. I think for some people, they're going to probably bump Animal Crossing, but I think as one of the big three, Nintendo, and that being their game of the year, I think you need to put that there.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of hours per person on that console. That's not something you can understate. So I think you're going to, for the Nintendo offering, you got to put Animal Crossing there. Doom Eternal is big, but I feel like that gets bumped once the Cyberpunk and Last of Us are in the fold.
For sure, for sure.
I feel like that's going to get bumped as much as I think that's a phenomenal game that came out early this year. And I think once you factor in all the multiplats that are going to come out and the Sony first party games, it's going to have a tough time getting that game of the year outside of like the FPS people. Mm-hmm. And FPSs are tricky when they're not super story heavy. They don't have the massive replayability to the outside people other than the FPS fans. So I think that gets bumped. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be dealing with basically Animal Crossing. Final Fantasy VII is probably going to stick around. Cyberpunk's going to be big. Last of Us. Ghost of Tsushima is kind of an unknown quantity because it's a new IP. That can be a Days Gone situation or it can be a Horizon situation. It can go a lot of different directions. I love Days Gone, but we'd be lying if we said that lit the world on fire. It didn't. It's popular amongst Sony fans, but again, it's an exclusive, and it's not something that's selling consoles. Nobody's being like, oh, I need to get a PS4 Pro so I can play that motorcycle game. That's not, unfortunately, what's happening. Also, I would like to mention another one that's a possibility to be a game of the year that no one's really talking about right now, which is Dying Light 2. Now, we don't have a date on that, but that could come out of nowhere. We don't know where Techland is in terms of development. If that's able to make it out into 2020, that's going to be big. If they're able to capture a lot of that spirit of the original one, now that that's an established name, that can light a fire under these people's butts. And then Halo Infinite is just... If Microsoft's able to get that out this year, anytime an Halo comes out, that shuts everything down. Not to mention, the next-gen jump. And a return to form in many ways where Halo 5 wasn't the most beloved game. But if they're able to recapture some of that spirit, have a solid engine, and the fact that Microsoft and Xbox fans are thirsty for an exclusive, like that could be pretty big too. So this is the first time where I feel like we can have a 5-6 way game of the year contender competition, which is incredibly competitive considering where we were other years, where it comes down to 2 to 3.
Yeah, usually.
And there was always one that was like definitively the game of the year. Like, yeah, Horizon versus Breath of the Wild was a debate for some people, but largely everybody's like, yeah, Breath of the Wild. But this year, it can honestly go a lot of different directions depending on what your tastes are.
Yeah, that's what I feel. Again, besides some of these... Again, I feel the same way. I was almost going to say that verbatim for Ghost of Tsushima. It's stuck in this place where it could be Horizon or it can be Days Gone, where it kind of comes out, does well, because Days Gone did sell pretty well, especially in Europe and stuff like that, sold well. And I think it's going to do probably somewhere more... I think it's going to be right in between those, where it's going to sell more than Days Gone, but it's not going to get super popular like Horizon, because I think... Samurais and all that kind of stuff has its fan base, and there's people who just aren't interested in it. Same way, like, some people just aren't interested in cowboys and didn't play Red Dead, and some people aren't interested in, GTA for that kind of style. So I think Ghost of Tsushima is kind of going to land somewhere right in that middle space. Halo Infinite is a big contender. I think if it's true that they really return to form, and they're really been talking about Halo Infinite as kind of that rebooting and rejolt of that franchise, because Halo 5 was 2015, so it's been a long time, and again, that one really divided the fan base, and I'd say 75% of the fan base, me being in that part, was super disappointed with what Halo 5 was, because Halo 5 was literally, that was the true answer to Call of Duty, and it was not that great. So the fact that they're going to try to be that, I think that will be the game. If they return to form and they really put their nose down and got those pencils sharpened and got things the way they need it to be, I think that'll probably be the game that will bump my Doom out of the line, because usually I want to spread out. That will probably be the shooter that I play the year, if it does launch this year.
Yeah, they're in a tricky situation because there is just a contingent of Halo fans that once that transition to 343 happened, it didn't really matter what they did, they weren't going to be happy.
Yeah.
But also, this is the first time, I believe, where a major Halo game is launching where Game Pass exists, which means that if you have an Xbox and you have that subscription, you have that game.
Yeah.
And that's a big... I feel like in many ways Gears 5 benefited from that. Not to say that wasn't a great game, but I think that benefited a lot from the fact that it's like, hey, if you have Game Pass, go play it. You don't have to fork out that $60 right now. You got access to a brand new Microsoft game. And I think Halo can benefit that, and I think Game Pass in many ways can benefit from Halo coming out. So it's going to be a reciprocal kind of energy. So I'm excited to see that. To me, if Halo ain't it, I'm starting to become a little apprehensive for the Microsoft ecosystem.
Yep.
Because if Halo doesn't do it, I worry about it, because new IPs ain't going to get it done if an established property like Halo doesn't. So I have a close eye on it. But I think I have a lot of faith in that game. There's for some reason, something about that is telling me that, like, if they can pull this off and get this out this year, that's an entire third of the industry with no competition.
Yeah.
That's their game of this year. That's their Animal Crossing. That's going to murder this year for that contingent of people. And again, I know the Microsoft player base is a minority stake in the industry right now, with the PS4 dominating in the way it did.
Yep.
But I mean, the projections of 35 to 40 million, that ain't chump change. That ain't nothing. So I think that's important to factor in, that if they could pull this off, that can be a major deal, and that could be a major deal in the FPS industry, which, again, other than Doom Eternal and the yearly Call of Duty kind of churn out, is going to be generally uncontested for them.
Yeah, again, they have a lot riding on it, like you said, because the little we have seen of Halo Infinite shows that they want this to be a success. That's they 343 redesigned Master Chief both in Halo 4 and 5, and people took a lot of issue with the what he looked like in 5. So that's why I think it was last year's E3 when they showed that small thing with Master Chief. They really did a lot of close-up shots of Master Chief and his armor, his shoulder pieces and stuff like that, because it did look like they made Halo look like Halo again, which was really strange because of how much time you spent not as Master Chief in Halo 5. I think they're starting to do that, and I think we need to start seeing some stuff about it again, because if they still plan for it to be this year, which I think would work in their favor, even if they have to somehow do a later launch for the Xbox Series version. Again, right now, it's all still planned to come out this year. I think you do need Halo Infinite this year. I think the fans have been waiting long enough. I think that Microsoft has learned that in their Xbox One, none of those new launch titles that they had. I think most people, when I've discussed to them what their Xbox One game, like that one Xbox One game they really liked, most of them actually it's I can't think of the name. It was Insomniac's game. Sunset Overdrive, and that's a second party, and it's technically still exclusive. It's on Steam, but that company is owned by Sony now, and we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna see Sunset Overdrive on Sony, or at least the sequel. So you're gonna, Halo really has to come fighting. When I look at the rest of the list of anyone else who's gonna make an impact, I mean, Marvel's Avengers, I probably will see it all over Twitter and IGN.
It'll probably sell well just because of name.
Yeah, I think that game is super late. I think that game should have come out between Infinity War and Endgame. I think it would have sold.
Oh, that would have murdered.
I don't know what they're thinking. I understand the game is suffering from so much stuff. I think that's where that game would have really, because that would have been a year after Spider-Man, right?
Roughly
so. Like that.
Yeah, around there.
So that they missed their window. So that game's gonna be fine. Maybe I'll pick it up on. I feel like it's gonna come to Game Pass maybe or something like that. So I probably won't even pick it up for a while. And then again, The Last of Us 2, I don't see coming out this year at all. So that's weird to think that the rest of the year is pretty much just 3 or 4 titles I'm excited for, and we're gonna watch them closely. I don't see my opinion changing too much for my game of the year. I think Final Fantasy VII really struck a specific chord in me with just a little bit of nostalgia, but so much new. Again, the game's not perfect, but when I think of the rest, Microsoft's Bleeding Edge was super underwhelming, and that game is half a game, to be honest. Doom Eternal again does so much well, but it wasn't super. It just did Doom better. Animal Crossing, obviously, I always keep that in the back of my mind. It's gonna be that kind of more. The game I played most this year is probably gonna be Animal Crossing, especially when you come into the holiday time, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
those events.
Those events are
a lot
gonna,
of life
man.
into
You
that
know, I'm
game.
gonna be in there. I'm like, well, let me load it up. Like you said, the painting stuff made me load it up a little bit more. I've been playing just a little bit more. I'm in that section now where I'm kind of just grinding for money and Nook miles.
We have shrubs now.
Yeah.
Steve, we have shrubs.
Oh, I put shrubs all over my place. I can craft like hedges now, so I put hedges around
Yeah.
places. So I'm excited for that. I got to grind. I don't have any money. I have like 100,000 bells. Cause
Come on, man.
I
Broke.
bro, I don't get no tarantula islands. I don't get any tarantulas on my island. The turnip games, I have some turnips, but I never buy too many turnips. And I didn't do. I know someone who, not you. I'm not putting it at you, but you know who else in this house has the game. Did a lot of glitches to get a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he's just living it up. Asked him for donation, he won't give me any. Anyway, but Animal Crossing, that's how good it is that I always get on a rant because there's still so much to talk about. I was hoping Resident Evil 3 was really going to be that game where I was really starstruck by. I fully went to thinking that I was going to like Resident Evil 3 remake way more than Final Fantasy 7 remake, and it didn't. I enjoyed my weekend with it. I dabbled in it a little bit after I completed it. There's just not much else to do unless you were trophy hunting, and that trophy's annoying to get, so I'm not going to go for it. I just don't see when I'm going to play Resident Evil 3 again. Maybe on a weekend if a friend is over or something like that. But, the Resistance Online mode was definitely not it. So
No, I didn't like that. At
no,
all.
yeah, it's they try to fluff it up by adding Jill into the online. It doesn't make any sense. Again, besides that, it's such a weird thing that like the heavy hitters are out pretty much. You have like the 3 standouts. Besides that, it's almost sad to say like, man, the year's over. Unless of course things are announced during what would have been E3 time.
Yeah. Cyberpunk and Last of Us come out.
Oh, no.
That changes the conversation for sure.
I think anyway. I believe Cyberpunk is coming out on its scheduled date because they did just show off that new Xbox, the control. These things gonna start being in production. I hope. I think I may just be more hopeful because I think Cyberpunk 2077 that will definitely be my fall game that I'll be gonna just be constantly grinding out because I can't wait for it. And then The Last of Us obviously is something. The Last of Us is a little bit different. Like obviously that'd be the game that would easily knock out Final Fantasy 7 for me.
Yeah.
And probably would knock out pretty much anything this year would be The Last of Us 2. Even though that's a game I would probably not try to play. I would try to beat it probably as fast as I beat Final Fantasy 7, which was in 2 weeks span. So it's such a weird year. Even ignoring, the whole COVID situation that really threw a wrench in the plan. But there's games out there for anyone right now. No matter what you're into, there's a game out there for you. And there's a game where you could call yourself, if you're a huge VR fan, Half-Life Alyx, I heard it's fantastic. I'm not a huge Half-Life fan. I heard even if you're a Half-Life fan, you'll love it. And I hear if you're a VR fan, you'll love it. Hopefully we see it come to PSVR. I'd pick it up there probably.
That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it because of Valve, but...
Yeah, but I mean, Valve likes money.
They do. Yeah, I mean, and I guess to wrap it up, I would say that this is one of the first years in a while where at the end of the year, when all is said and done for that Game of the Year conversation, everybody has something to put forth. Like, Nintendo's got something, Xbox got something, possibly, and then PlayStation's got something. And seeing everybody be able to compete for that top spot, I mean, I know it's a cliche, but, like, the gamers win here, for sure. Like, no matter what ecosystem you're involved in, everybody's got something.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's a big deal. And not to mention, the fighting game community, when Guilty Gear comes, like...
Yeah, the fighting game, like I always say, I'm kind of in that kind of community, always keeping it. They're playing a lot of that, it's about, not Blaze Blue. It's an Arc System game. It's that fantasy sword game.
Oh, I know which one.
Let me see.
I forget the name of it.
I'll get the name in a second. But like you said, game for everyone out there.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a big year when all is said and done. And I mean, even if things get pushed out of the fall, I think there's more than enough to kind of satiate everybody's play. And the good thing is, not only are there are like short experiences like Resident Evil 3 that kind of come and go, and you play them and they are what they are. But there are also ones that are gonna stick around for a long time. So like people are gonna be playing. I mean, Final Fantasy kind of comes and goes. in terms of like it's a fixed narrative experience. But like Animal Crossing is gonna go indefinitely as long as you want to play, and Cyberpunk looks like to be a freaking long game too. So who knows?
Yeah, there's gonna be DLC anyway. They say they're gonna be just as big as the ones for Witcher. Just a quick backtrack: Grand Blue Fantasy versus
that one, yeah.
Which I couldn't really get into that franchise. I tried watching the anime. It's okay. But that's actually, I'm surprised I didn't get that fighting game. You know, fighting game community still has Mortal Kombat's going to start their second season soon. Tekken keeps reviving itself with new characters. Street Fighter keeps reviving itself with new characters. So there's, no matter who you are, there's something to play for sure.
All right, so a long episode 13. Look at us.
Episode 13. Wow.
And we got a lot of content coming for you guys. The gameplay is coming from him. I'm doing collection videos. We're kind of flexing our strong suits.
Yeah. I will have collection videos soon. I may be able to do one this week. I'm in the middle of changing location, so I'll have access to my stuff again.
Yep.
I may have to time jump a little bit. I know you're kind of going in order. I might have to start with PS2 collection that I know you and I discussed off cam. So collection videos are coming from both of us. Gameplay videos are still coming.
Yeah, and I mean, doing PS2 first, I mean, is perfect because, again, I didn't have any intent on jumping into those. I was going to go handheld next and then probably take a little break from it. So, that works out perfect. So, I hope people are enjoying that. And I was kind of looking at my consoles, and after the N64, things get a little shoddy for me.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, yeah, because you're going to do the handhelds, which is a good section. You know, I don't have, like, a Game Gear. I think I do have a Game Gear. I don't think I have any Game Gear games.
But you see how much I got. I got a crap ton of handheld.
Yeah, handheld. You're gonna have a good set amount, so that I can,
And I might do one big blowout and put everything in one video. I'm contemplating.
Yeah, that might work out because the amount that you have, you probably can go through them pretty well. So
yeah, Game Boy Advance. Maybe I'll throw DS in there and really
go all out.
Maybe I'll do a separate DS. I don't know. I'm feeling frisky. I might throw something.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have that again. I'll have my PS2 one. I don't know if it's time to do, and then we can wait until before we obviously do our PS4 ones and stuff like that. But because those are weird collections, because then you got to count digital games, physical games, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, digital is weird because going through my digital library, I don't know if that resonates with people the same way. I don't know. I got a whole bunch of weird crap in there.
Yeah, so. It's mainly about the physicals, which I have tons of PS4 games.
Yeah. All right. Well, episode 13. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed having a long episode. Typically, we don't go this long. But the next episode, it can go anywhere from an hour and a half. Who knows? Maybe we'll get weird when next gen comes out and we'll have like a 2-hour episode, be on our Joe Rogan energy, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabril and I'm
Steve.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Take care.